The metal was melting. Flames devoured the black Mercedes like a hungry beast, and the man inside was trapped, unconscious, blood trickling from his temple. Isabella Moreno had only seconds to decide. Letting him die meant safety. Saving him could destroy everything she had built to protect her daughter. But then Maya's screams echoed from the back seat of their car. "Mommy, he's going to die!" And something inside Isabella broke. She was no longer the nurse who saved lives. She was no longer the single mother struggling to survive on 2 jobs. In that moment, she was just human. And humans don't let other humans burn alive. She ran. The heat was unbearable. The smoke stole her breath. Her hands found the crumpled door, pulled with impossible strength, and dragged the stranger out seconds before the car exploded. The next day, a mysterious black car awaited her at her door, and nothing would be the same. This is the story of how a single mother saved the most dangerous man in the city, and how he swore that nothing would ever hurt her again. The flames were orange and red, vibrant, hungry, licking the night sky like dragon tongues determined to devour everything. The air was thick with black smoke, and the nauseating smell of burnt rubber, gasoline, and something worse. Something that smelled dangerously like flesh beginning to burn. Isabella Moreno had never seen such a violent accident. The black Mercedes lay on its side against the guardrail of the Castellano highway. Twisted metal and shattered glass scattered across the road like deadly confetti. Sparks flew from the crushed engine, each one a promise of imminent explosion. She should have driven straight. Every fiber of logic in her brain screamed at her to keep going, to floor the gas in her trusty old Toyota, drive home, and forget she saw anything. Intelligent people didn't get involved in luxury car accidents in the middle of the night on a deserted highway, especially not single mothers with a 7-year-old daughter in the back seat and bills that were already way overdue. But then Maya screamed from the back seat, her high-pitched, panicked little voice. "Mommy, there's someone in there! I saw him move!" Isabella instinctively slammed on the brakes, her heart stopping for a beat. She glanced in the rearview mirror, searching for other cars, for witnesses, for any sign that someone else was coming to help. The highway was empty, completely empty. Only the growing fire and the distant groans of metal being consumed by the flames. "Mommy, please," Maya pleaded, tears streaming down her little face. "You always say that nurses save people. You can save him." Isabella closed her eyes tightly. Her daughter was right. She had taken a vow years ago, when she graduated from nursing school. She had promised that she would always try to save lives, no matter what. But that was before Diego, before her violent ex-husband almost killed her, before she fled with Maya in the middle of the night, with nothing but the clothes on their backs and 100 crumpled dollars in her pocket, before she learned that the world was cruel and that survival came before heroism. But when she opened her eyes and saw the flames rising higher, something deeper took over. Not logic, not fear, just the stark truth that she couldn't live with herself if she let someone die when there was even the slightest chance of saving them. "Stay in the car, Maya," Isabella ordered, her voice trembling but firm. "Lock the doors. Don't get out for anything. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mom." Isabella jumped out of the car, her cheap sneakers clattering on the still hot asphalt from the scorching day. The heat from the flames hit her like a physical wall, making her skin tingle and her eyes instantly water. Each step toward the destroyed Mercedes was an act of pure willpower against the survival instinct that screamed at her to run in the opposite direction. When he reached the car, he could see through the shattered driver's side window. A man was slumped against the steering wheel, his face turned to the side, blood trickling from a deep cut on his temple. He was unconscious, but his chest rose and fell with shallow, irregular breaths. Alive, barely, but alive. The door was crumpled, held in place by the impact. Isabella pulled with all her might, muscles protesting, hands slipping on the hot metal. It wouldn't budge. The flames were getting closer, crawling from the engine toward the car's interior like deadly snakes. "Come on, come on, come on," she murmured to herself, a desperate mantra as she pulled again, this time planting her feet on the asphalt and using her body weight as leverage. Something creaked. It gave way. The door opened with a groan of tortured metal. Isabella reached the man, unbuckling his seatbelt with trembling fingers. He was large, much heavier than her, but the adrenaline had given her a strength she didn't know she possessed. She pulled him out, dragging him across the asphalt, away from the burning car, her back screaming in protest, and her lungs burning with the inhaled smoke. They had moved away perhaps 10 meters when the world exploded. The shockwave hit them like a giant fist, throwing Isabella forward over the unconscious man, instinctively shielding him with her own body. Metal flew in all directions. Scorching heat washed over them. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was still. Isabella rolled to her side, panting, coughing, every muscle trembling. Her arms were scratched and burned in places. Her clothes were torn and stained with soot. But she was alive. They were alive. She crawled over to him, checking his pulse with professional fingers. Weak, but steady. His head needed stitches. Possible concussion. But he was breathing. He was alive. And she had done it. She had leaped straight into hell and snatched a stranger from the jaws of death. Maya was running toward her now, having completely ignored the instructions to stay in the car, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy! Mommy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, darling," Isabella said, her voice hoarse with smoke. "I'm fine." She looked at the man she had just saved. Even unconscious and covered in blood and soot, there was something about him that made her hesitate. His suit, though torn and burned, was clearly expensive. Very expensive. The kind ordinary men didn't wear. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than she earned in a year. And there was something about his face, even bruised, that conveyed power, authority, danger. For a terrible moment, Isabella wondered if she had made a mistake, if she had just saved someone she should have left behind. But then he groaned softly, and her nurse's instincts took over again. She tore the bottom of his shirt, using it to press against the cut on his head, applying firm pressure to stop the bleeding. "You're going to be okay," she murmured, not knowing if he could hear her. "I'm going to make sure you're okay." Sirens blared in the distance. Someone must have seen the explosion and called emergency services. Help was coming. Isabella held Maya's hand with one hand, while applying pressure to the stranger's wound with the other, and waited under the night sky illuminated by the still burning flames of the destroyed Mercedes. She didn't know it yet. She had no idea. But at that moment, on that deserted highway, Isabella Moreno had saved the life of Dante Salvatore, the most powerful and feared man in the entire city of San Verano, and the destiny of both of them had changed forever. Hello, dear souls. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this channel. Your presence means the world to me. If you're new here or haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Comment below where you're listening from. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Dawn arrived with a golden light that seemed out of place. Too beautiful, too peaceful for what Isabella had experienced just hours before. She stood in the small kitchen of her 2-bedroom apartment in a dilapidated building on the less affluent side of San Verano, making coffee with hands that still trembled slightly. Her burns had been treated at the hospital where they took the injured man. "Nothing serious," the doctor said. A few stitches might be needed for some deeper scratches, but she had refused. She didn't have money for unnecessary medical expenses. Maya was finally asleep after hours of nightmares about exploding cars. Isabella had stayed with her, singing lullabies and promising that everything would be all right, even without being sure if that was true. She picked up her cup of coffee, looking out the kitchen window at the dusty street below, and she froze. A long, gleaming black car was parked directly in front of her building. A Mercedes, she realized with a start. Not as new as the one that had exploded last night, but clearly expensive, clearly out of place in that neighborhood where rusty cars and graffiti were the norm. A man stood beside the car, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an impeccable dark suit and mirrored sunglasses despite the early hour. His arms were crossed, and though she couldn't see his eyes, Isabella knew for sure he was looking directly at her window, watching, waiting. Isabella's heart raced. Pure, icy, sharp terror coursed through her veins. Diego, her ex-husband, had found her. Somehow, after 3 years of silence, he had tracked her down to where she had fled with Maya. He was coming to get his daughter, or worse. Her hands trembled so violently that coffee spilled onto the counter. She dropped the cup, rushing to Maya's room. Every instinct of a mother bare roaring to life. She would grab her daughter. They would escape through the fire exit, run, disappear again if they needed to. But before she could reach Maya's room, someone knocked on the door. Not a normal knock. 3 firm, authoritative knocks, the kind of knock that refuses to be ignored. Isabella froze, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Another man was outside her door now. She could see his shadow through the crack below. Waiting. Slowly, very slowly, she approached the door. "Who is it?" she called, hating how small and frightened her voice sounded. "Ms. Moreno," came the reply. The voice was deep, calm, polite, nothing like Diego. "My name is Alessandro. I work for Dante Salvatore, the man you saved last night. He would like to speak with you." Isabella blinked. For a moment the words didn't make sense. Dante Salvatore. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. I don't understand. Who? Please, Ms. Moreno, open the door. I promise you're not in danger. Something in the sincerity of his voice, or perhaps just the overwhelming relief that it wasn't Diego, made Isabella unlock the door with trembling fingers. She opened it a crack, keeping the chain in place, and looked outside. The man on the other end was middle-aged, with graying hair at the temples and a face that seemed to have seen many things, but still retained a kind of weary gentleness. He smiled slightly when he saw her. "Thank you. I know this must be frightening. What do you want?" Isabella asked, still not letting go of the chain. "My boss, Mr. Salvatore, is recovering at San Marco Hospital. He woke up this morning and the first thing he asked about was the woman who saved him. He asked for her to be brought to him so he could thank her personally." "I don't need thanks," Isabella said quickly. "I'm a nurse. It was my duty. Please tell him I hope he recovers well." Alessandro nodded slowly. "I'll tell him. But Miss Moreno, with all due respect, Dante Salvatore is not a man who accepts unpaid debts. You saved his life. He will insist on rewarding you properly." "I don't want a reward. I just want to be left alone." Alessandro's expression darkened. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. You see, last night's accident wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill my boss, and you, in saving him, may have put yourself in danger as well." Isabella's blood ran cold. "What do you mean? The people who tried to kill you may come after you too. As a witness, as someone who thwarted their plans, Mr. Salvatore wants to ensure your protection, yours and your daughter's." Tears stung Isabella's eyes. Of course, saving that man would have consequences. Nothing in her life had ever been simple. Nothing had ever been just priceless kindness. "Ms. Moreno," Alessandro said gently, "please, come and speak with him. Just a conversation. And then, if you wish, we will arrange protection for you and your daughter until this is resolved. You have my word." Isabella glanced over her shoulder at the hallway leading to Maya's sleeping room. Her little girl, who had already been through so much, deserved peace and security and a normal childhood. And now, because of a single act of stupid courage, Isabella might have put her in danger again. "Let me change my clothes," she said finally, her voice almost a whisper, "and wake my daughter. Then we'll go." San Marco Hospital was the best in the city, the kind of place politicians and celebrities went when they needed elite medical treatment. Isabella had never been inside before. She worked at Santa Rosa Public Hospital on the other side of town, where the corridors were overflowing, and patients often waited hours for treatment. Alessandro led her through silent, sterile corridors, past nurses who watched them with curious expressions. Maya held Isabella's hand tightly, her large eyes absorbing everything. Neither of them had said much during the car ride. What was there to say? They stopped in front of a private door on the top floor. 2 men in dark suits were positioned on either side, clearly security guards. They nodded to Alessandro, who knocked once before opening the door. The room was spacious, more like a luxury hotel room than a hospital ward. Expensive vases covered every available surface, and on the bed, propped up against immaculate white pillows, lay the man Isabella had dragged from the flames. Dante Salvatore looked different in the daylight. Clean-shaven, his head wound carefully bandaged, wearing a hospital gown that somehow still conveyed authority. He must have been about 40, she estimated, with dark hair beginning to show silver streaks at the temples. His face was all sharp angles, a strong jaw, and eyes that captured her the moment she walked in. Dark, intense, penetrating eyes, the kind of eyes that seemed to see right through all of a person's defenses. When he saw her, something changed in his expression. It softened. Just a little, but enough to be noticeable. "You," he said, his voice deep and slightly hoarse. "The woman who jumped straight into the fire to save a stranger." Isabella stood near the door, still holding Maya's hand. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her professional voice returning. "You had a concussion. You need to rest." A ghostly smile touched Dante's lips. "Worried about me. Even now." He gestured to Alessandro, who discreetly left the room, closing the door behind him. "Please, sit down. Both you and your daughter." Isabella hesitated, then guided Maya to the chairs beside the bed. "Your man? Alessandro said the accident wasn't an accident. It wasn't. Dante's expression hardened. Someone cut the brake line on my car. They intended for me to die on that highway. It would have happened if it weren't for you. Why would anyone do that? Dante studied her for a long moment. Miss Moreno, do you know who I am? Isabella shook her head slowly. Should I? Something akin to admiration shone in his eyes. Most people in San Verano know my name. My family, let's just say we have considerable influence. The kind of influence that comes with enemies. The realization hit Isabella like ice water. You are... She didn't finish the sentence in front of Maya, but Dante understood. Yes, he said simply. I'm the man who controls this city. The illegal businesses, the operations the police can't touch. And you, without knowing it, saved my life. Isabella stood up abruptly, pulling Maya with her. We need to go. Sit down, Dante said, his voice not loud, but laden with an authority that made Isabella hesitate. Please, I won't hurt you. On the contrary, I'm in your debt. I don't want anything from you. I just want you to leave us in peace. I understand, and I will respect your wish. But first, you need to understand something. Dante leaned forward, wincing in pain at the movement. The people who tried to kill me saw you. There are cameras on that highway. They know that a woman and a child pulled me from the car. They'll want to make sure there are no witnesses, that you can't identify them. The terror returned, tightening around Isabella's throat. Are you saying they're going to look for me? I'm telling you they're already searching. But now you're under my protection. And that means that nobody, absolutely nobody, will dare touch you or your daughter. I don't need your protection. I can take care of myself. Dante laughed, but it was a humorless sound. I'm sure you can. You jumped into a burning car to save a stranger. Clearly you have more courage than most of my men. But courage isn't for bullets, Miss Moreno. Gunmen don't care how brave you are. Isabella sank back into her chair, all her strength leaving her legs. He was right. She knew he was. And the most terrifying part was that he wasn't even trying to scare her. He was simply stating facts. What do you want from me? She whispered. Nothing, Dante said, his voice softening again. Except to allow me to protect you. Men will stand guard at your apartment. You'll have an escort to and from work. Any unusual movement will be reported. It will take perhaps 2 weeks, perhaps a month, until we find who is behind the assassination attempt, and resolve the matter. And then what? And then you'll go back to your life, as if we never met. You have my word. Isabella looked at her daughter, who was strangely quiet, absorbing the conversation with wide, frightened eyes. Maya was too clever for her own good sometimes. She understood more than Isabella would like. Okay, Isabella finally said, but only until it's safe, and then you'll leave us alone. Dante nodded, a hint of relief crossing his face. Agreed. Thank you, Ms. Moreno, for saving my life, and for trusting me to protect yours. As Isabella and Maya left the room, escorted by Alessandro back to the waiting black car, Isabella couldn't help but glance back once. Dante was watching her from the hospital window, a solitary figure framed by the morning light, and something in his expression made her hesitate. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't possessive. It was something closer to admiration, to gratitude, to something she didn't dare name. The following days unfolded in a strange new routine. True to Dante's promise, men in dark suits appeared at her apartment building. They never entered. They never approached. They just stood there, watching, discreet but unmistakable. The neighbors whispered, of course. They speculated, but no one dared ask, and Isabella offered no explanations. Every morning, Alessandro would arrive to take her to work at Santa Rosa Hospital. Maya went to school on a different route, always with a discreet guard following at a respectful distance. At night, they would return home, eat simple meals in the small kitchen, and Isabella would try very, very hard to pretend that everything was normal. But it wasn't normal. How could it be when every time she looked out the window, she saw reminders of the dangerous world she had stumbled into? When every time Maya asked about the men in suits, Isabella had to lie and say they were just friends helping out temporarily. A week after the accident, Dante appeared at her door. Not Alessandro. Not one of his men. Dante himself, wearing dark trousers and a button-down shirt that probably cost more than Isabella's monthly rent. The bandage on his head had been replaced with a smaller band-aid, and although he still looked pale, he moved with the confident grace of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. Isabella answered the door with Maya hiding behind her, her fingers gripping Isabella's shirt. Mr. Salvatore, I wasn't expecting you. "May I come in?" he asked politely. Isabella hesitated, then stepped back, letting him pass. Her apartment seemed to shrink with his presence. He was too big, too powerful, too much everything for the small, modest space. But he looked around without judgment, his eyes absorbing the cracked walls, the second-hand furniture, Maya's drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. "You have a beautiful home," Dante said, and it sounded sincere. "It's small," Isabella replied, crossing her arms defensively. "But it's ours." Dante nodded. "I came to thank you personally, again, and to bring this." He held out a thick envelope. Isabella looked at him without making a move to take him. "I said I didn't want payment." "It's not payment. It's for expenses. Medical expenses, perhaps. Or for your daughter. Education is important." "I don't accept charity." Dante's jaw clenched slightly. "It's not charity. It's a debt being paid. I don't want." For a long moment, they stared at each other, their wills testing one another. Finally, Dante put the envelope back in his pocket. "As you wish, but the offer stands. If you change your mind, Alessandro knows how to contact me." He started to turn to leave, then stopped. "Ms. Moreno, Isabella, if I may, you are a remarkable woman. Not many people would have done what you did. Jumped into that fire, risked everything for a stranger. Anyone would have done the same," Isabella said softly. "No," Dante countered, his voice firm. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have driven straight ahead, protected themselves. You chose differently, and that tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Isabella's cheeks flushed under his gaze. "You don't know me." "No, but I'd like to meet you." The words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning neither was ready to acknowledge. Then Dante nodded once, formally, and left the apartment, leaving Isabella alone with her heart pounding and thoughts she didn't dare examine too closely. 2 days later, everything fell apart. Isabella was working her shift at the hospital, changing dressings and checking vital signs when her phone rang. Maya was crying on the other end of the line, her voice hysterical. Mommy, come quickly!" Isabella's blood ran cold. "Maya, what happened? Where are you?" "I'm at school, but there are men here. Not good men, different men. And they said they want you, that if you don't come, they'll take me away." Isabella's world exploded in pure panic. She dropped the phone, already running, screaming to her supervisor that she had an emergency. Alessandro appeared out of nowhere. He must have been alerted by the men guarding the school. "Let's go," he said abruptly, already pulling her towards the car. "Call Dante." They raced through the streets of San Verano at illegal speeds, police sirens wailing somewhere behind them, but Alessandro didn't slow down. His phone was pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent, speaking rapidly in Italian to someone on the other end. When they arrived at Maya's school, it looked like a war zone. Police cars blocked the entrance. Panicked parents crowded at the doors, trying to reach their children. And in the center of it all, 3 men in civilian clothes held hostages, their weapons visible, shouting demands at the police officers who were trying to negotiate. "Maya," Isabella whispered, absolute terror gripping her chest. "Where is my daughter?" Alessandro gripped her arm tightly. "Don't come any closer. Let Dante handle this. My daughter is in there. Going there will only get her killed," Alessandro said harshly. "Trust Dante. He's already on his way." As if summoned, another black car skidded to a stop. Dante got out, and even wounded, even fresh out of the hospital, he commanded attention. Police officers moved away. The kidnappers froze, recognizing him instantly. "Release the children," Dante said, his voice cutting through the chaos. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The sheer authority in his tone was more effective than any volume. Now, one of the kidnappers, a man with a scar on his face and wild eyes, laughed. "Salvatore, finally! We thought maybe you were too dead to show up. Clearly, I'm not. Now release the children before this ends badly for you." "This has already ended badly for us," the man shouted. "You destroyed our operation. You killed our boss. You left us with nothing. And now what have you chosen to do? Take innocent children? Threaten a woman who has nothing to do with our business? She saved you. That makes her ours." Dante stepped forward, unarmed, hands slightly raised. "Then take me. I am who you want. Free the children and take me instead." "No!" Isabella screamed, pulling herself free from Alessandro. "No, you can't." Dante looked at her, and for the first time since they entered, she saw fear in his eyes. Not fear for the kidnappers, fear for her. Isabella, stay where you are. But Isabella wasn't listening anymore. All logic, all self-preservation, evaporated the moment she saw her little daughter through the school window, her face stained with tears and terrified. She ran, straight past the police, straight past Dante's protests, straight into the line of fire. "Take me away!" she screamed at the kidnappers. "I'm the one you want, right? The witness? Then take me away and release my daughter. Please." The world stopped, for a heartbeat. 2. Then the leader of the kidnappers smiled, a horrible, triumphant smile. "Come then, heroic nurse. Let's see if Salvatore values your life as much as you value his." Isabella walked towards the school, each step an eternity. Behind her, Dante was shouting, Alessandro trying to restrain him, chaos erupting as men moved in formation. But Isabella kept her eyes fixed on the window where Maya was, on her daughter's little face, and continued walking. She had almost reached the door when gunfire erupted, not from the kidnappers, from everywhere around the school's perimeter. Dante's men, she realized, positioned on rooftops, in cars, at every strategic angle, had been waiting for the perfect moment. The kidnappers fell almost simultaneously, elite snipers taking them down with brutal precision before they could raise their own weapons. The school door blasted open. More of Dante's men rushed inside, protecting the children, pulling them to safety. And then Maya was running straight to Isabella, throwing herself into her arms with such force that she almost knocked them over. "Mommy! Mommy!" Isabella sank to the ground, clutching her daughter, sobbing into her hair, checking every inch of her to make sure she was unharmed. You're okay. Thank God." Strong arms lifted her. Dante, ignoring his own injuries, pulled Isabella and Maya into his arms, shielding them with his body while his men secured the area. "I got you," he murmured into her hair. "I got you." And for the first time in 3 years, since she ran away from Diego, Isabella allowed herself to crumble. She let go of the strength she had always maintained, the walls she had always built, and clung only to Dante Salvatore, as if he were the only thing keeping her standing, because at that moment, he was. The outcome at the school changed everything. The police asked questions, but Dante answered them with expensive lawyers and skillfully constructed explanations that transformed the gang kidnapping narrative into a misguided extortion attempt that was quickly dismissed. No charges would be filed, no investigation would follow, because that was how Dante's world worked, where power and money bent reality to suit his will. But for Isabella, the world had irreversibly changed. She could no longer pretend she was safe, that she could protect Maya alone, that her choices had no consequences that extended beyond her control. Dante took her and Maya to a safe house that night, not an apartment, a real house, tucked away in the hills above San Verano, surrounded by high walls and iron gates and security that made her previous apartment seem like a paper dollhouse. It was beautiful, she had to admit, spacious and bright with large windows overlooking the city below. Maya had her own room, decorated in soft pastels with toys and books that looked new, but not ostentatious. Someone had put a lot of thought into making a 7-year-old feel welcome, without scaring her. "This is only temporary," Dante said, gesturing around, his voice gentle but firm, "until we are certain there are no more threats." "How long?" Isabella asked, exhaustion weighing down each word. "Days, maybe weeks, no more than that." Isabella sank into the sofa, her head in her hands. "How did my life come to this? 2 weeks ago I was just me, a single mother working to support my daughter. Now I'm in a safe house hiding from mobsters." Dante sat down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance between them. "You made a choice, a courageous choice. Consequences followed, but that doesn't make your choice wrong. My daughter almost died. Your daughter is alive and safe because of you, because of your courage." Isabella looked at him, tears burning in her eyes. "Why do you care? Why would you do all this for us? Just because I saved you?" Dante studied her for a long moment. "Do you want the truth?" "Always. Because in 42 years of life, no one has ever jumped into a fire to save me. People fear me. They respect me. They obey me. But no one has ever risked anything for me without wanting something in return. Except you." His hand found hers, a surprisingly gentle touch. "You saw me as just a man, someone who deserved to live, and that made me want to be worthy of it." Tears streamed down Isabella's cheeks. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just let me protect them. Both of them. Let me prove that some of us can change. In the weeks that followed, a strange routine developed in the Safehouse. Maya adapted with the resilience of children, befriending the guards who took turns watching the perimeter, exploring the large garden with delight. Isabella returned to work, escorted daily, but beginning to feel less like a prisoner and more like someone genuinely protected. And Dante became a part of their lives in ways Isabella never expected. He had dinner with them most nights, telling stories that made Maya laugh, asking questions about school and friends and dreams for the future. He never talked about his business in front of the child. He never let the dark world he inhabited infiltrate those stolen moments of normalcy. One night, after Maya had fallen asleep, Isabella found Dante on the balcony, watching the city below. "You don't have to stay," she said softly. "I know you have things to do." "Nothing is more important than being here," he replied without turning around. Isabella joined him on the balcony, their shoulders almost touching. "Why do you really do this, Dante? And don't give me the line about gratitude. There's something more to it." He finally looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes stole his breath. "Because when I look at you, I see something I thought I'd lost a long time ago. Hope, kindness, the possibility that not everyone is corrupt or corruptible. You make me want to be better, to do better. Dante, I know I don't have the right, that you deserve someone without blood on their hands, someone good, simple, and safe. But I can't help but—" Isabella kissed him. She hadn't planned it. She hadn't thought about it. She simply turned and pressed her lips to his, swallowing her words, pouring out all the confusion and fear and overwhelming feelings she had been denying for weeks in that single kiss. Dante froze, his heart pounding, then pulled her close, deepening the kiss with a tenderness that belied his reputation for brutality. His hands framed her face as if she were something precious, something that could break if he held on too tightly. When they parted, both were breathless. "Isabella," Dante whispered, his forehead resting against hers. "You don't know what you're doing to me." "Then show me," she replied, her voice hoarse with emotion. "Show me who you really are. Not the Mafia boss, not the man everyone fears. Just you." And he showed it. That night, he told stories of his childhood, of an abusive father and a mother who died too young, of how he rose through the ranks not out of ambition, but out of survival, of all the choices that led him to become the man he was, and all the things he wished he could change. Isabella listened without judgment, holding his hand, allowing herself to see the humanity beneath the power. And when he finished, she told her own stories, about Diego, about escape, about building a life from nothing to give Maya something better. They talked until dawn, and somewhere between darkness and light, something changed between them. No longer savior and saved. No longer protector and protected. Just two survivors who had found understanding in each other's arms. 3 weeks after school, Alessandro came with news. "We caught the last one of them," he told Dante, his expression grim. "The man who ordered the attempt on your life. He's contained." Dante nodded. "And did he speak?" "About everything. Enough to dismantle the entire operation. It's over. Then it's done." Dante looked at Isabella, who was standing behind him listening. "You're safe now. You can go home." The words should have brought relief. Instead, something tightened painfully in Isabella's chest. "Oh, unless—" Dante hesitated, vulnerability crossing his face for the first time. "Unless you don't want to." "Not wanting what?" "Come back. You could. You and Maya. You could stay. Here. With me. Not as hostages or protected ones. As family." Time stood still. Isabella stared, trying to process what he had just said. "Family? I know it's crazy," Dante said quickly. "We've only known each other for weeks. You don't owe me anything, and I have no right to ask this. But Isabella, He paused, taking both her hands. "I love you. I love how you see the world. I love your courage. I love how you love your daughter. I love the woman who would jump straight into hell to save a stranger. And I want to spend every day I have left trying to be worthy of that." Tears streamed freely down Isabella's face now. "Maya, I love her too, as if she were my own. I will protect her with my life, give her all the opportunities she deserves, send her to the best schools, keep her safe and loved every day. I'm asking you to give me a chance, to build something new, something better, to transform this world I inherited into something your daughter wouldn't be ashamed to know." He knelt before her, this powerful man humbling himself completely. "I will be yours if you have me. Not just now, forever. Isabella looked at the man kneeling before her, the man she had saved from the flames, the man who had become her protector, her confidant, she barely dared to think about it, her love. "Stand up," she whispered. When he did, she framed his face with her hands. "Dante Salvatore, you are the most impossible, most complicated, most completely wrong man for me that I could have ever met." His face fell. "And I love you too." The joy that burst into her expression was so pure, so unguarded, that it stole her breath. He spun her around, laughing, pressing kisses to her face until she was laughing too, tears and joy mingling in something beautifully messy. "Mommy!" They froze. Maya stood in the doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Why are you crying?" Isabella bent down, opening her arms. "Come here, my sweet." Maya ran to her, and Dante joined them, enveloping them both in a hug. "How would you feel?" Isabella asked gently. "If we stayed here longer? If we lived with Dante?" Maya's eyes widened. "Really? Forever?" "Maybe, if you want." Maya looked at Dante with the seriousness of a 7-year-old. "Are you going to take care of my mommy?" "With my life," Dante promised. "And will you help me with my math homework? Because Mom is bad at math." Isabella stifled a laugh. Dante kept a completely serious face. "Absolutely. I'm excellent at math." "Okay then." Maya nodded decisively. "We can stay." And so, in a tangled embrace of limbs, laughter, and love that defied all logic, a family was born. Not traditional, not simple, but real and fierce, built on a foundation of courage and second chances. The following months brought changes Isabella could never have anticipated. Dante kept his promise, not only to protect them, but to truly change. Illegal operations were slowly dismantled. Legitimate investments took their place. It wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. Men who had followed Dante for years questioned his leadership, called him weak, but he remained steadfast, supported by Isabella, guided by a desire to build something Maya could one day know about without shame. Isabella returned to work, but now at San Marco Hospital where Dante had recovered. Better hours, better pay, the chance to truly make a difference. She never asked for it. Dante simply arranged it, understanding without words that she needed her own identity, her own purpose beyond being his companion. Maya blossomed. New school, new friends, therapy to process the trauma of the kidnappers. She still had nightmares sometimes, but fewer and fewer as the months passed. And she adored Dante with a fierce loyalty that made Isabella's heart ache. He was the father Maya never had, kind and patient in ways Diego never had been. A year after the accident, Dante took Isabella back to the Castellano highway, to the exact spot where it had all begun. The guardrail had been repaired. No evidence remained of the flames, the explosion, the moment that had changed both their lives. "Why are we here?" Isabella asked as they got out of the car. Dante guided her to the place where she had stopped that night. "Because it was here that you saved me, and I want you to know what that meant." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Before you, Isabella, I was dying. Not in the car. Long before that, I was dying inside, lost in a world where violence was the only language I spoke, where power was the only thing that defined me. And then you jumped straight into hell to save me, without knowing who I was, without wanting anything in return. And that saved me in ways you can't even comprehend." Tears burned in Isabella's eyes. "Dante, let me finish." He released one of her hands, reaching into his pocket. When his hand emerged, it held a small velvet box. "Isabella Moreno, you are the bravest, most stubborn, most utterly extraordinary woman I have ever known. You have shown me that redemption is possible, that love can exist even in the darkest places. That family is not defined by blood, but by choice." He opened the box, revealing a simple yet stunning ring. "Give me the honor of spending each remaining day proving that I was worthy of being saved. Marry me." Isabella couldn't speak. She only nodded, tears streaming freely as Dante slid the ring onto her finger. Then she was in his arms, kissing him under the sky where once there had been fire and death. But now there was only love and hope and possibility. They married 3 months later, a small ceremony in a church in the hills, with only close family and friends. Maya was a flower girl, radiant in her pink dress. Alessandro was a groomsman, smiling with proud approval. And when the priest asked if Dante accepted Isabella as his wife, his answer resonated through the church with a conviction that left no room for doubt. "I do, today and forever." When they asked Isabella, she looked into Dante's eyes and saw their entire journey reflected there. fire and blood and fear, but also courage and love and the choice to save, always to save, even when it would have been easier to turn away. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and certain. "With all my heart." The kiss that sealed their vows was witnessed by those who loved them, and by the memory of the highway where it all began, proof that sometimes the most improbable endings are born from the most desperate beginnings. Epilogue. 15 years have passed since the night Isabella Moreno pulled Dante Salvatore from the flames. 15 years since a single mother in an old Toyota made the choice that would change all their lives forever. The house in the hills had expanded, grown with the family that lived there. Maya was at university now, studying medicine like her mother, determined to save lives with the same kind of courage she had seen exemplified all her life. She had 2 younger brothers, twins whom Dante and Isabella had adopted 3 years after their marriage, children rescued from impossible circumstances and given a second chance. Dante had completely transformed his empire. No illegal operations remained. In their place, legitimate businesses provided jobs for hundreds, community clinics that Isabella oversaw, programs for at-risk youth, giving them alternatives to the violence that once defined Dante's world. It wasn't perfect. There were relapses, moments when the old world called, tried to drag him back, but always, Isabella was there, his light, his guiding light, the woman who jumped into fire to save him and never stopped believing he could be better. This morning, they stood side by side on the balcony, watching the sunrise paint San Verano in shades of gold and pink. Dante's hair was completely gray now. Isabella had lines around her eyes from years of laughter, but their hands remained intertwined with the same strength as always. "Have you ever regretted it?" Dante asked suddenly, turning to look at her with those eyes that still held all the intensity of 15 years ago. Isabella squeezed her hand tighter, smiling. "Which part? Jumping into those flames? Loving you? Building this life? Either one of them." "Not for a second," she replied without hesitation, turning to face him completely. "You know what I learned that night on the highway, Dante? That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's leaping even when every instinct screams at you to run. It's choosing love when hate would be easier. It's believing that people can change, even when the whole world says it's impossible." Dante pulled her close, kissing her forehead with the tenderness that only years can bring. "You didn't just save my life, Isabella. You saved my soul. You gave me a reason to be better, to do better. And you gave me a home," she whispered against his chest. "You showed me that strength isn't about surviving alone. It's about having the courage to accept love when it appears, even in the most impossible circumstances." From inside the house, children's laughter echoed. The twins, now 12 years old, were playfully arguing about some game. Maya was home for the weekend, probably still sleeping after a difficult week of studying. "Our family," Dante murmured, wonder still evident in his voice even after all these years. "Built on ashes and flames, but real, more real than anything I had before you." Isabella looked down at the city below, San Verano awakening under the rising sun. 15 years ago, she was a terrified single mother, working 2 jobs, running from ghosts of the past. Now she was a wife, a mother, a supervisor of clinics that saved lives every day. And she was in love with a man who had been saved from the flames and chosen to use that second chance to create something beautiful. "You know what's funny?" Isabella said softly. "That night, when I saw the flames, my first instinct was to drive straight ahead, to protect Maya, to protect myself, but something inside me refused to look the other way, and that single choice changed everything." "Thank you," Dante whispered, his words heavy with emotion, "for not looking the other way, for jumping, for giving me the chance to become the man who deserved your love." They stood there, as the sun rose higher, painting the sky in shades of gold and promising a new day. 2 survivors who had found each other in the darkest hour, 2 hearts that refused to let the flames win. Because in the end, no matter how high the fire burns, no matter how impossible the rescue seems, there will always be someone willing to jump. There will always be someone who chooses to save instead of abandoning. There will always be love where we least expect to find it. And this truth, forged in flames and sealed with courage, is the only one that truly matters. Thank you for listening to me until the end. I am immensely grateful to each of you who dedicated your time to embark on this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any stories. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in Isabella's place? Would you have jumped into the flames? Until the next story, continue believing in the power of love, courage, and second chances. A big hug from someone who believes we all deserve to be saved.